A surprise confession, the accused Mumbai attacker pleads guilty. India and the US agree on a major defence pact. Space newcomer China looking forward to making its own giant leap. And the Lords drought over. England ends a long-running losing streak. Hello, Beverly O'Connor with ABC News for Australia Network. The leading suspect in last year's deadly Mumbai attacks has unexpectedly admitted his role in the killings. Mohammad Ajmal Amir Kassab admitted not only his own involvement, but has named his co-conspirators. They included senior members of the Pakistani Islamist movement Lashkar-e-Toiba. India correspondent Michael Edwards reports.
Mohammad Ajmal Kassab is the only gunman who was captured alive during the Mumbai attack. Until recently, he's maintained his innocence.
We are very surprised that abruptly Kassab has taken this stand that he would like to confess his guilt. In fact, I was personally very shocked. My police officers were very shocked.
In his statement to the court, he gave details of the attacker's alleged journey from Pakistan in a boat and the violence that followed. If the confession stands up, it will boost India's claims the Pakistani Islamist group Lashkar-e-Toiba planned the attack. Kassab also named a senior member of Lashkar-e-Toiba as a mastermind of the plot. Earlier this week, Pakistan acknowledged Kassab's Pakistani citizenship. Indian officials say this is what made him confess.
I am of the firm belief the moment the Pakistani Federal Investigating Agency has filed the charge sheet in Pakistan court and saying that Ajmal Kassab is their national, was involved in the terror attack, then the last ray of Kassab that was broken. That is my guess.
India accuses Pakistan of not doing enough to crack down on terror groups within its borders. Pakistan has acknowledged the Mumbai attack was partly planned on its soil.
I've seen a real commitment on the part of the Pakistani government and the Pakistani people to taking on the extremists that threaten them. So anything we can do to try to convey support for those who are standing up against extremism anywhere is part of my mission and our country's mission.
Photos of Kassab brandishing an assault rifle are some of the most enduring images associated with the Mumbai attack, and his confession is being seen as a major victory in India. And it comes as US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton is in New Delhi for talks with the Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh. Michael Edwards, ABC News, New Delhi.
The Obama administration is taking early steps to forge a relationship with India. The visit of US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has resulted in a significant defence agreement between the two countries. But it wasn't all smiles, with climate change proving a stumbling block.
In a deceptively low-key setting, the top diplomat of the United States met the leaders of an emerging superpower. First on the agenda was high-security trade. India has agreed to host 2 nuclear power plants run by US companies.
These parks will advance the aims of the US-India civil nuclear agreement, facilitate billions of dollars in US reactor exports, and create jobs in both countries.
The plants are worth up to $10 billion in sales. India will also increase its defence procurement, with the US allowed to monitor the sophisticated weapons purchased to ensure they aren't passed on to third parties.
We have agreed on the end-use monitoring arrangements that will henceforth be referred to in letters of acceptance for Indian procurement of US defence technology and equipment.
India is expected to spend $30 billion in the next 5 years, upgrading its largely Soviet-made arsenal, a blossoming market for US defence companies. But others had their hopes dashed by the talks. The US wants India to sign up to carbon emission limits by December, but it appears India has no such intention. The Obama administration is still keen to pursue good relations between the countries. The Indian Prime Minister has accepted an invitation to Washington in November, the first foreign leader to call on the new Democratic president. Sarah Dingle, ABC News.
Indonesian police believe the ground coordinator of Jakarta's deadly hotel attacks is a man who helped build bombs used in the 2005 Bali bombings. They suspect the man known as Teddy controlled Friday's attacks from the Marriott Hotel. They are also carrying out DNA tests and are trying to rebuild the faces of one of the bombers. From Jakarta, Indonesia correspondent Jeff Thompson reports.
The remains of 2 Australians finally leave Jakarta's police morgue, a building they have shared for days with the suicide bomber who killed them. There is growing evidence that he deliberately targeted a weekly business breakfast meeting, attended by Australians Craig Singer, Garth McAvoy and Nathan Verity. The JW Marriott's CCTV footage suggests he had no other target in mind. Noko Kiroyan survived the attack with a bruised eye and a ruptured eardrum.
So he must be heading straight to the lounge. He had no other objective but to get to the lounge.
Where you were?
Where we were. We were the only group sitting there.
That it was a regular breakfast function does seem to indicate that that was the intention.
Bomb materials recovered from the Marriott Hotel and a house linked to Nordin Muhammad Top suggest they were the same devices as used in all major attacks in Indonesia since 2003. But this second attack on the Marriott reveals a new level of planning and sophistication.
After the blast at the JW Marriott, hotel staff report seeing another man wheeling a suitcase and carrying a backpack disappearing into the underground tunnel which runs beneath this road and up into the Ritz-Carlton, bypassing normal security.
Both suicide bombings were clearly aimed at Westerners.
In the terrorists' perverted way of thinking, it is possible that what they contemplated was, well, how can we minimise the fallout against us, and perhaps doing that by targeting specifically Western people at a Western function.
Luxury hotels in Jakarta are alert to the possibility of further attacks and are taking bomb threats very seriously. Jeff Thompson, ABC News, Jakarta.
Foreign ministers of Southeast Asian nations have adopted an historic document that will pave the way for the region's first Human Rights Commission. But already critics say the new human rights body is unlikely to carry any real weight.
ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is moving into new territory by setting up its own human rights body. But the move has been greeted with scepticism by those who point to the association's traditional stance of declining to interfere in the internal affairs of any of its members. The policy of consensus has led to criticism in particular over ASEAN's handling of ongoing human rights concerns in Burma. But supporters of the new human rights body say it could be strengthened over time.
It is important to make this human rights body credible, but at the same time take into account the real situation in ASEAN member countries. So these terms of reference to set up the human rights body or commission is the beginning of a very involving process.
In its first incarnation, the new body will not investigate or prosecute human rights violators. The conference to endorse its creation is taking place against a background of international outrage over the trial of the pro-democracy leader Aung San Suu Kyi in Burma. Her case and Burma's human rights record is set to come under scrutiny at the Asia Regional Forum later this week, when the US, Russia and China will all be in attendance.
We'll have to wait the outcome of the trial and look at the legal possibilities, because we obviously cannot interfere with their internal process. But we'll see what options there would be, and we have to wait the outcome of the trial first.
More than 10,000 security personnel have been drafted in for the duration of the meetings to ensure no repeat of the invasion by anti-government protesters in April that led to that ministerial gathering being abandoned. Richard Hewitt, ABC News.
A 75-year sporting hoodoo has ended with England finally beating its arch-rival Australia at the hallowed ground of Lords. The home side comfortably claimed the final wickets to take a 1-0 lead in the series. Here's Europe correspondent Philip Williams.
Dark clouds over Lords, but at the start it wasn't clear who'd be praying for rain.
Not over-optimistic, but hope England win.
Fairly confident we should be right. Always stick out there for a few more overs and keep it ticking over and stick it up, you pommies.
But early on it was the English doing the sticking, Australians the walking. The drama shared in pubs and clubs across the country. The prize for the English, breaking a 75-year drought against Australia at Lords.
It's the first time for what, 75 years? Yeah.
But it was no laughing matter for the Australians, and the English loved it.
It means that you guys are on the ropes, and that's the best bit about all of it. You know, the fact that we're going to be 1-0 up, going into Edgbaston, where you guys don't play well anyway, going into Headingley, another place where we've got a great track record against you, and the Oval will be a draw. It's so demoralising for you, and that's the best bit about it. It's not just the winning, it's the beating that we really like.
As the last wicket fell, the roar could be heard from one end of the country to the other. A collective euphoria. Unbridled relief, the Australians weren't going to snatch heroic victory this time.
We showed a lot of fight and a lot of courage to be able to play that way, but at the end of the day, it's a 116-run loss in a test match, so that's pretty disappointing.
From the vocal to the demure, it was time to celebrate.
Yes, jolly good show.
Any sympathy for the Australians?
Well, would you show sympathy for us?
And for the Australians, this was the only hat-trick of the series. But when you're down and out, there's always past and future glories to consider.
What happened in Australia last time? 5-0, wasn't it? So we're waiting for another 2 years.
But with 3 tests to come, all is not lost yet.
After yesterday, I was getting a bit nervous, but we've come right back at the Aussies and we've shown them what's what. And roll on Edgbaston, and roll on Headingley, and roll on the Oval.
So finally, the English have beaten Australia here at Lord's, and they go into the next test full of confidence. But even they concede Australia is a never-say-die team. Philip Williams, ABC News, Lord's.
Yeah, we'll have more on the sporting side of that Ashes test a little later in the bulletin. You're watching ABC News for Australia Network. Coming up, all the day's finance news. And Michael Owen scores his second goal in as many matches as Manchester downs Malaysia. 40 years ago, they flew to the moon. Now those early pioneers want the United States to go even further. American astronauts have called on the US President Barack Obama to provide more funding for further space exploration. The 3 Apollo 11 astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins and Buzz Aldrin, were among those welcomed at the White House to celebrate 40 years since man's first step on the moon. Earlier, all 3 astronauts made a rare joint appearance at the National Air and Space Museum in Washington. It was there the crew called for a manned mission to Mars to be the next great goal. North America correspondent Lisa Miller reports.
The years haven't diminished their appeal.
She wasn't communicating, I was trying to receive.
The Apollo 11 astronauts can still pull a crowd. Buzz Aldrin might have been second on the moon, but he's first in the publicity stakes with book signings, TV appearances, even a rap song.
All you need is the rocket experience. What you need is the rocket experience.
But tonight he shared the limelight with his former commander, the reclusive Neil Armstrong, who credited the space race with diverting the US and the Soviet Union from war.
Eventually, it provided a mechanism for engendering cooperation between former adversaries. In that sense, among others, it was an exceptional national investment for both sides.
The astronauts' lunar landing may have captivated the world, but only 10 others followed in their footsteps before the program ended in 1972. Now 2 of the Apollo 11 team want humans to go much further as part of a bold and visionary space program.
I'd like to see Mars become the focus, just as John F. Kennedy focused on the moon.
America, do you still dream great dreams? Do you still believe in yourself? Are you ready for a great national challenge?
NASA has set 2020 as the deadline for putting humans back on the moon, but some wonder whether the American public shares that ambition. While that first moon walk galvanised a nation, the massive cost involved in sending humans even further into space could prove to be too contentious. Lisa Miller, ABC News, Washington.
Meanwhile, there's a new kid on the block in the space race. It's China, and they are rapidly catching up, with the Chinese space program achieving significant goals in a very short time.
China's great leap forward into space has bounded effortlessly into the outer limits. In 1969, when the world was watching the Apollo 11 moon landing, China was largely isolated from the experience. Few neighbourhoods in China television, let alone in individual homes. But this has all changed, and now China is also at the forefront of space technology. In a few short years, China has gone from putting up simple rockets to manned space flights.
China's space technology level is among the top in the world. It's not easy for China to get onto this level in such a short time, just a dozen or so years.
And like America's achievement of the moon landing, China's space program is a source of national pride.
China attaches a lot of importance to the development of the space industry. I think the development of the space industry helps China to promote its international image and prestige.
It seems the sky's no limit for China, with plans by Beijing to put an unmanned rover on the moon by 2012 and a manned mission by 2020. Gabby Hills, ABC News.
A roadside bomb in Afghanistan has killed 4 US soldiers, taking the NATO toll for July to at least 55, the deadliest so far. The blast comes the same day as a British jet crashed in the south of the country, and the same week as the release of a video of a US soldier held hostage by the Taliban.
It's a bad month for morale. On Monday, a British fighter plane crashed here after catching fire, injuring the 2 crew. The day before, a Russian civilian helicopter went down at the same base, killing 16 people. NATO officials say the 2 crashes are pure coincidence. The war in Afghanistan is creating heartaches for many families, with a rising death toll for coalition troops. And the United States is still reeling after the release of this video.
Well, I am scared. I'm scared I won't be able to go home. It is very unnerving to be a prisoner.
My personal reaction was one of disgust at the exploitation of this young man.
Coalition leaders have been quick to announce rescue efforts.
The operations to recover him or to find him they are extensive, vast. They're on it 24/7.
We are very concerned about the kidnapping of our American soldier and are working to do all we can to obtain his safe release.
The US is keenly aware that a live hostage is just as damaging as a mounting death toll. Parthena Stavropoulos, ABC News.
The new US Assistant Secretary of State for East Asia and the Pacific, Kurt Campbell, is in South Korea for the first time since taking on his role last month. The visit comes as tension on the Korean peninsula continues to escalate.
Kurt Campbell has taken on the role of the United States key diplomat on North Korea at a difficult time. Meeting with Seoul's nuclear envoy, Wee Sung-lak, he said the countries need to ensure they are coordinating closely as there are critical times ahead. But he gave away few details of how that would be achieved to the waiting media.
Very good meeting.
North Korea quit international talks aimed at ending its nuclear ambitions in April in anger over a UN rebuke for launching a long-range rocket. Assistant Secretary Campbell has conceded that the North has shown no signs of reopening negotiations. He's pushed a 2-track strategy of tougher sanctions and offers of dialogue. But that stance is unpopular with at least some in the South.
We're here today to urge the US to abandon containment policy and move forward with actions to make the talks successful.
At the ASEAN Regional Forum, North Korea's nuclear agenda will be definitely discussed.
The US has warned of unspecified consequences if North Korea continues tests on banned ballistic missiles. But it says the US and its partners would be prepared to offer attractive incentives if Pyongyang returned to the disarmament talks and took serious and irreversible steps to disarm. Bill Bainbridge, ABC News.
You're watching ABC News for Australia Network. In the headlines, an unexpected admission, with the leading suspect in last year's deadly Mumbai attacks admitting to his role in the killings and naming his co-conspirators. Now let's take a look at the financial markets, and in the United States the Dow and Nasdaq both rose about 0.5%. In London the FTSE also was higher, well over 1%. To the regional markets in New Zealand, the top 50 has opened 0.5% stronger. Korea's Kospi is unchanged. Yesterday, the Nikkei was closed for a holiday. Thailand set and the Singapore Straits Times Index both made big gains. In Australia yesterday, the market extended its rally into a fifth straight day. In China, markets were high, led by metal and coal producers. Hong Kong and India both added more than 3%. Jakarta was closed for a holiday. To currencies, the US dollar is stronger against the yen, weaker against the other major currencies in the region and against the euro. Gold is buying $9.49 US 70 an ounce, and oil is steady at $63.47 a barrel. To sport and back to the Ashes series, with England comfortably defeating Australia in the second test at Lords. As we mentioned earlier, the home side broke a 75-year losing streak to wrap up the final wickets and take a 1-0 lead in the series.
A grandstand finish beckoned at the home of cricket as England sought to wrap up the series lead and create history in the process. It had been 75 years since England had defeated Australia at Lords, and after some nervous moments, it seemed as if that streak would soon be broken. The hits kept on coming as the tourists struggled to come to terms with a ferocious opening spell.
I think he went to play it and suddenly realised just at the last minute he tried to duck. He took his eye off it. Oh, that was real lucky, that.
After disappointing with the ball, Mitchell Johnson found himself with a shot at redemption with the bat. But after a confident start, it was the similarly criticised eye of umpire Rudy Kurtzen that saved the Queenslander from an early departure. Michael Clarke was now faced with the increased need to get the scoreboard ticking over before running out of batting partners. The added pressure proved to be the straw that enticed the vice-captain's bat.
Got him! Went past it, Michael Clarke.
Nathan Horrocks came and went as Andrew Flintoff began to revel in his last test at the home of cricket. Peter Siddle tried but failed to stand in the way of the rampaging all-rounder as England drew to within 1 wicket of victory. Mitchell Johnson's 50 delayed celebrations for the briefest of moments before the 75-year thirst was quenched.
Fold him! Swan takes the final wicket. The Lord's voodoo comes to an end.
Players from both teams will now have 10 days to regroup ahead of the third test at Birmingham. Matt Conway, ABC News.
Still on cricket, and Bangladesh has claimed its first overseas Test series win with a 4-wicket victory over the West Indies in Grenada, thanks largely to a 96 not out for acting captain Shakib Al Hassan. And 3 late wickets has helped Sri Lanka fight back against Pakistan in the third Test in Colombo. The visitors were cruising at 2 for 203 before crumbling nearing the end of play, reaching stumps at 7 for 289.
With Sri Lanka having already built an unbeatable 2-0 lead in the series, it was only pride on the line for Pakistan. But redemption looked unlikely as the visitors lost Fawad Alam for 16. And Yunus Khan 3 balls later for just 2. But opener Quram Mansour teamed with Muhammad Yusuf to stage an impressive comeback. The pair built a 167-run partnership before Mansour departed. Yusuf went a few overs later. The visitors built up another streak before a collapse in the last 3 overs. 3 wickets gone in the space of 8 balls. Nuwan Kulasekara claimed the final 2. In football, Manchester United has defeated Malaysia 2-0 in a pre-season friendly on its Asian tour. Federico Macheda put the visitors 1-0 up with a goal in the 11th minute. Before Michael Owen scored the second goal 2 minutes later. United moves on to South Korea next, where it will play FC Seoul. And fellow English Premier League side Liverpool has arrived in Bangkok for the first leg of their international tour.
I think that the preparation during the pre-season is really crucial for the rest of the season. So this week will be also important for us. We will try to train properly and try to play well.
The Reds' Asian tour begins with a match against Thailand on Wednesday. Ian Burrows, ABC News.
Now let's take a look at how the weather is shaping up for us for Tuesday. Southeastern Australia's in for a few showers, particularly Tasmania, and lots of wind. So windy in Melbourne, windy and wet in Adelaide. Then a front and low in the west are weakening, showers easing in Perth. A sunny day for Canberra, warm and sunny in Sydney and Brisbane, windy in Alice Springs and a few showers for Cairns. A moist westerly wind blowing across New Zealand's North Island will bring showers to Auckland and a few to Wellington. Windy in Noumea, windy and wet in Nuku'alofa, and an early clearing shower in Port Vila, some late thunder in Rarotonga and heavy rain in Nauru. Not looking too bad across Southeast Asia today, mostly fine in the south through to Kuala Lumpur, although a bit of cloud cover around and the odd storm in Singapore. Heavy rain further north in Manila, storms for Guam and Pohnpei. A sunny Tuesday for Hong Kong. Get ready for some very hot weather this week. Then the outlook from Hanoi right down to Phnom Penh is stormy, temperatures around the low 30-degree mark. Heavy rain on its way to Ho Chi Minh City. A frontal system extending across southern Korea to southern Japan will trigger rain in Seoul and Tokyo. Osaka will have a drizzly day. An overcast 35 in Beijing. Taipei mostly cloudy. In Shanghai, a thundery day. Karachi said to have a mostly sunny day, and that's the only fine spot. Mumbai's in for heavy rain. In Chennai, late showers will provide some relief from the heat. Thunderstorms everywhere else. You've been watching ABC News. Before we go, let's check again our top story. The sole surviving suspect from last year's Mumbai attacks admits his role in the three-day siege that killed 166 people. And that's where we're going to leave this bulletin. You can always keep up to date, though, with all the news and current affairs from the region at our website. It's australianetworknews.com. I'm Bev O'Connor. Thanks for your company. See you soon.